In this lesson, we will talk about multi-dimensional arrays. You may already be familiar with single-dimensional arrays that are used to store a large collection of data of the same data type. Now, certain types of data are more naturally represented as a table or a matrix, such as a table of distances between cities, right? This can be more naturally represented in a two-dimensional format. And so approximately it is declared and initialized as such, but let's talk about it in its parts. So let's talk about first about declaring a 2D array. This may look very familiar. The only difference is that it has a second set of square brackets to show the second dimension of integers, right? You may also see it represented as such where the brackets are at the end, but this is a less common format and not recommended, right? We can take the next step and create the 2D arrays with new and providing the actual sizes of each of the dimensions, right? And we can access 2D arrays by providing two indices, right? By providing the row and column values, and these can be used in assignments or anywhere other variables would be used, right? Now, for uses like this, sometimes it is better to use constants instead of referring to actual indices because it has actual meaning to our use case. So in this case, it's much easier to read this as the distance between New York or Boston being set to 214. Okay. Now, a 2D array is really a 1D array of other 1D arrays, right? So let's assume that you have declared and created an array like this with 3 rows and 4 columns. Now, if you check the length of X, right, it really shows that this is of length 3. Each of its elements is then again a one-dimensional array. So the first, each of which is of length 4, right? So it's an array is really a two-dimensional array is really a one-dimensional array of one-dimensional arrays. We'll get get an idea of this in much better detail when we talk about ragged arrays. So a 2D array, the rows and columns don't necessarily have to be of the same size. We could actually have a ragged array which is triangular and which is not necessarily a rectangle or a square. So here this is a triangular array where the first row has 4 columns, the second one has 3, and so on. So, so let's actually try this out in code. So let's pull up IntelliJ, and here I've put in the code already. I've declared a triangular array. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to print the length of the array. So if it is if this is really indeed an array of other arrays, the length here should be 4. Then I print the lengths of each of the other rows. In this case, it would be 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's run this and see what it shows. So as expected, we see that the top level array is an array, one-dimensional array of 4. Then each of the rows is 4, 3, 2, and 1, which is what is shown here, right? All right, moving back. So another way to achieve the same thing is with a declaration as follows, where you declare and create the top level array with 4 rows, and then you declare each of the other arrays individually, right? It's the same thing, but obviously this is a much easier way to do this. Now, for working with 2D arrays, for loops are the most natural thing, just like we do with one-dimensional arrays. We can have nested for loops with loop variables that can be used to index into the arrays. They can be used to set the arrays or print the values, to count out all values, or do other things like find min, max, and sum, like we have done before. Right? Now 2D arrays, like 1D arrays, are passed into methods as references, and they're returned from methods as references. Note that when they're declared in the signature, they're declared like this, without necessarily having to provide the sizes, just with the two brackets. Now you can extend the concept to 3D arrays, just like we had two-dimensional arrays or 4D arrays. In fact, arrays play a large part in some of the deep learning algorithms, and it is very common to have multi-dimensional arrays in that domain. So this has been the lesson on multi-dimensional arrays, basically extending a lot of the concepts that we had in single-dimensional arrays to 2D arrays, declaring, creating, and initializing, specifically thinking of arrays, two-dimensional arrays as arrays of other arrays, and extending the concepts to processing arrays with for loops most naturally, and arrays work in the same way for passing as arguments as well as being returned, but they're returned and passed by reference. And then you can certainly have higher dimensional arrays, 3D, 4D, and so on. Thank you.